All right, all right. Hello, Victor. So happy that you're here on Surgery for the Soul podcast. We have a very special guest today, and it's a very special episode. It's our first filmed episode, video episode. Not for me. Well, not for you. I'm sorry, not for you, but for me. It's my first time being on camera, but you are not shy of the camera.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Because you yourself have a podcast that
sure.
that films and streams video.
Yeah.
So tell me about it.
The podcast? So podcast is called Village Boys Podcast. Started with one of my best friends at Mecca. Pretty much the concept of it comes from, because there's a Malcolm X quote that says there's no black liberation without black solidarity. So It flows from the concept of like exploring the nuance of blackness around the world, because I feel like society has this view, especially from like a American lens, that blackness is very monolithic.
Yes.
And it's really not, like it's blackness. There's so many black people around the world. There's black people in Africa. There's black people in the Caribbean.
All
There's black
kinds.
people in Brazil. There's black people in Argentina, places like that. So the point of the podcast was just about finding like the links between all that from history and tradition, but also like nuance and different ways to explore blackness. Because from the other side, I think sometimes people try to police blackness, where it's like, this is how black people act, or this is how you should act as a black person.
Right.
And I think it's way more multidimensional.
Oh,
than that.
definitely. Put us in a box.
For sure. They try to pigeonhole us in a good sense and a bad sense. And I think that's just detrimental to culture, and it's detrimental to growth as society. So
Right.
For sure. So,
I definitely feel the same way. I'm so glad you guys are doing that and
For
spreading
sure.
the word that there are different kinds of black people
For sure.
in the world.
For sure.
We're not all a stereotypical case.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's so funny how me and Victor met, actually.
Yeah. Tin Roof vibes.
At Tin Roof, yes, the good old Tin Roof in Nashville, Tennessee, DeMumbry.
Yep, good old Tin Roof.
Talking, and come to find he has his own podcast. He hears I have a podcast, so I had to have him on the show.
For sure, for sure. And I think I met you, and you just naturally had good energy about you. And I'm a very friendly person. You seem like you would seem like a very friendly person when I met you. And I think I was just scrolling on your page, and I'm very like interested into like mental health and people just being vulnerable, right? And I saw your content. I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool. And I usually work out early in the morning, so I checked out a couple episode, and I just really fucked with it. Can I curse on the podcast?
Yes, say it.
I just really fucked with it. So I was like, yo, this is dope. So I reached out, and I was like, this is super dope. And we had a couple conversations, and you checked out my podcast.
Yeah.
And it's just cool to see that symbiosis and that connection of both of us putting our content out there, because it's a very, very scary thing to put your voice out there in any sense,
Yes.
because you give the masses a chance to like break you down. And especially we talk about mental health on our podcast as well. So it's kind of cool to like just blend ideas and see how it expresses in different spaces. So
Exactly. And it is a vulnerable thing to do. And I've always been transparent, but I haven't always spoken my truth. But I found that the more I kept talking about it, the better I felt.
for sure.
Yeah. So that's, I appreciate that, by the
For
way.
sure.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
for sure. Shout out to you for that. It's not an easy thing to do. So I think
not.
people need to applaud that more often in society.
Yes, I agree. So speaking of mental health, have you ever had a stint with mental health? Like, have you ever been in therapy?
Okay. Yeah. I've been in therapy. I was in therapy for about 6-7 months. It wasn't like one incident that made me go to therapy. It was like a combination of different things, right? So I'll give you the philosophical perspective and also like the personal journey that led me there. So from like a philosophical space, I think people have this saying where they say like life is short, and theoretically it is, but like in terms of your physical body, life is the longest thing you ever do, right?
Right.
And for you to like amplify this experience, there's so much trauma that we gain from our childhood. There's so much things that, because life just beats us all into submission, and we just live in these constant cycles and we don't figure them out. So I feel like to fully experience this life from like a different space and truly just gain everything we can in terms of like relationships, in terms of like self-development. I feel like therapy is one of those things, and just working on your mental health is in general just gives you ammunition to express yourself better, to know yourself better, to build healthy romantic relationships, to build healthy relationships with your family, to build healthy relationships with your friends. So I think from a philosophical perspective, it was one of those. But also there's this beautiful quote from Cornel West where he says, about Cornel West, one of my favorite people in general, is a good writer. He's a scholar as well. So he said like the relationship between joy and catastrophe, and how do you look at the grimness of this world and the darkness of this world, and also still keep your light and your joy.
Right.
Because like life gets really hard for all of us, regardless of our different experiences. So for me, it was one of those things where it was like, okay, if I have this tool that can help me make this see another day or just make this experience better, then why not? And
Yes.
yeah, and I'm sure you probably you could probably understand that as well. So from a personal perspective, it was my co-host at Mecca. He actually had he was going through a stage of like depression and anxiety. And me and him are like really, really tight. We tell each other like everything, you know what I mean? And I remember when he like started telling me that, and I was like, it was just very like, it stopped me in my tracks, because I've always looked at him as like this kind of just like example of strength. So when somebody like that comes to you like that and tells you all these things, it was kind of like, damn, I didn't know you was going through this.
Right.
And he was like he talks about it on the podcast. I don't think he minds me talking about it. He was talking about like suicidal thoughts. And I remember he was just in a very dark place. So he started going to therapy. Some of my other friends were going to therapy and just talking about how much it helped them. And just for me also, I'm a very introspective person. There were just so many things in my life that I was like, okay, I could be better at this, right? Like, or I would do something that was like me not operating from my highest self.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I lashed out in anger or did something stupid. And I'm like, that's not really who I am deep down inside. And like, so it was one of those things where I was like, where's this coming from? And that curiosity led me to therapy. And the more I started going, the more I started understanding how my past also shaped who I became and my tendencies and my responses. So I think that's where it came from. That's the philosophical and the personal journey for me to get in therapy. So
wow, oh my gosh, there's so much that I want to comment on what you said.
For sure.
That is so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. By the way,
most
I
definitely.
was really, really excited not only to have you because you have your own podcast, but because you're a male and you're a black male.
For sure.
And in society, men aren't very open about their mental health or emotions or anything. You said you saw your friend, your co-host, as such strength, and you had no idea he was going through what he was going through. And it takes so much strength to do that and to want to be better, to get better. Because when you are in those dark places, it's so easy to stay in the dark space than to come to the light.
That's a bar right there.
Yes.
That is a bar right there.
Oh, thank you.
That is a bar.
Well,
It's a natural.
I'll be here for 45 minutes. More to come. Yes, so I am enamored by you and your your best friend's journey.
For sure.
It's very admirable to be vulnerable and honest like that. You saw something in you and you wanted to figure out why. Yeah,
For sure.
you had accountability.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have accountability these days.
I agree.
I will say that therapy has helped me see the bigger picture as well, because I feel like I used to be a people pleaser or play the victim. Why does this keep happening to me? Why me? Why me? I'm a good person. But I have accountability. I needed to see from not a friend's perspective, because your girls are always going to hype you up, always going to tell you, no, you're good.
That's why you got to have like people that are not yes men in your crew.
Yes, and I do now. I definitely have a very good set of friends around me at this time, and my family has always been supportive.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's just, I got to see where I was making mistakes and seeing where I let things slide, where I could have had respect for myself and moved on
Yeah.
instead of staying in situations that aren't healthy for me.
I agree. I definitely agree. And that's, I'm proud of you for doing that. You know what I'm
Oh,
trying to say?
thank
Because
you.
not everyone takes that step, but not everyone even makes it out of that space. You know what I'm trying to say? Like you said the concept of like darkness and also coming into light. I think it's a constant struggle. It's like an everyday thing to find that light, you know? So it's not one of those things where you pop your head over the mud and you're like, oh, I'm finally free. It's
Yeah.
like life constantly throws more dirt on you type thing.
Every day.
So, but I think the beautiful thing about mental health is, like you said, I think we take from each other's journeys, right? So you being able to be so powerful with your voice and because there's no courage without vulnerability. Like Brene
Right.
Brown has that beautiful quote where she says there's no courage without vulnerability because you have to put yourself out there. So
Yes.
we take pieces from your story, somebody else might take a piece from my story, and it gives them ammunition to pull themselves out. And especially as a man, like you said, as a black man, it's like a completely different like dynamic as well.
Yes.
So
Like hardcore.
for
It is.
for sure, it's like a different dynamic. For sure.
Yeah, I'm like excited because I want people to see, like, look at this cool dude. I mean, look at him. He goes to therapy. He's
Gassing me
aware.
up.
Self-awareness is freaking great.
For sure, it definitely is. And like it's just about changing the stigma, right? Like, just changing the stigma. Like it's not a weak thing to go to therapy. It's not a weak thing to talk about your emotions. I think as men, not even just black men, just men in general, right? The way we're groomed and the way society grooms us does us a lot of disservice in terms of like dealing with our emotions, right? Because there's this book by Bell Hooks. It's called The Will to Change. And she talks about masculinity, how it flows with women, and how it flows in everything in society. And like she gave a beautiful example where she says, like, as a child, it's common knowledge, like if a girl falls and she hurts herself, the first thing the parents do is pick them up, like, hey, are you okay? And things of that nature. And they're like, okay, it's okay if you cry or whatever. But like if a boy falls, the first thing is like, be tough. Like boys don't cry. And they're not doing it from a place of like malice or anything. It's just from like a place to toughen them up.
Right.
But those little patterns set something in your mind where you grow up and everyone has this facade of like machismo and these just weird things that we all have as men. Like it's innate in all of us because we're groomed like that. But I think society's moving into a space where men are seeing how that's done us a disservice for generations. And how, like, because that doesn't just affect us, right? That also affects our relationships with women. It makes men very abrasive sometimes to the opposite sex, to each other. A lot of violence comes from a place of ego because of, like, you want to prove that I'm tougher, I'm stronger, I'm whatever, right? So I think society's moving towards a place, and it's going to take generations, but it takes conversations like this, right? Society's moving to a place where men are seeing, okay, like I could still be a strong man and still be emotionally cognizant and like still be emotionally healthy. You know what I mean? And have good communication skills and things of that nature. So I think it's definitely changing. So it's a good thing to see.
It's a breath of fresh air to hear as well, coming from you.
For sure.
Yes, so thank you for that
sure.
and bringing awareness from that. You mentioned helping relationships and stuff like that. Can you tell me, like, how is dating, for instance?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, are you dating currently? And...
I mean, I'm single. I'm single.
Yeah.
I'm not like talking to anybody specifically. Like I'm not like in a committed anything, whatever. I'm open to dating. Like I'm not in the space where like I'm like, this might make me sound like a fuckboy type shit. But I'm not in the space where I'm like, I'm trying to get married in this amount of years or that, whatever. I'm like, if I meet somebody that flows with everything I'm looking for in a woman, that flows with me, like just on it, just flows with me. You know what I mean? And I would date him. Like I would be stupid to like pass up on that. But I'm not in the space where I'm like
actively dating, like looking.
For sure, because I think it's a balance, right? Because sometimes when you approach it like that, it might be different for women because women society has this thing where they think women are like in a race for biology, and if you're not married at this age, you can have kids, you know? So as a man, it's probably different for me, but Because a lot of times,
Yeah. And I was going to say, because like being from a Nigerian culture, I didn't
Yeah.
know if you had the pressure. Like, let's say if you had a
Yeah.
sister, it might be different. They
For
may
sure.
be saying, okay, like,
Yeah.
are you going to
I
bring
mean,
it?
my parents are whispering it in my ear. Definitely. They're definitely whispering it in my ear. But, like, I think sometimes when you, like, pursue that too hard, you just get in this space where you just, like, you overlook a lot of things just to fill that void and fill that
Yeah.
hole. Then you meet somebody and, like, a person might be cool, but that's not really your person. But because you feel obligated to fill that space, you just, like, whatever. And then 10 years down the road, you're in an unhappy marriage. And that's, like, my biggest fear. Like, anything in life is just being with, like, waking up 10 years later and be like, wow, I married the wrong person.
Right.
Or her doing the same to me. That's, like, my biggest fear.
Yeah, not really knowing someone.
Yeah, for sure.
I had this conversation with one of my best friends the other day, and I'm not currently actively dating. I'm still in my healing phase.
Yeah,
but
feel
I
it.
was
It's good you know that.
yeah. And she was talking to me and she's like, I've only dated friends. Like, I've never gone out with someone. I've just, just met
Hit it off.
online, you
Yeah.
know, and there's a spark. Let's date this guy. No, she was saying that she only dates friends because she already knows they love her, you know. So why not? And it always ends in a healthy way because the love was there in the first place. You already know who
For
they
sure.
are. There's a history of friendship. You like hanging out with them.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be attracted to them in some way, and
For
if,
sure.
if it's a mutual attraction, great.
Yeah.
I
Do you think it's a slippery slope though?
I think so. It could be if
Somebody gets burnt.
if the sexual intercourse
Yes.
is initiated
For
too
sure.
soon.
I agree.
Such an old lady.
I feel it though. I feel it.
It could turn into an F buddy situation if it's a
Okay.
friend, but I think if it was mutual and the feelings were expressed, and you're
Yeah.
like, man, let me take it there. I honestly was like, that is actually pretty good, and I want to implement this when I'm
Yeah.
ready. I might just because I have many male friends. I just might just take one under my wing and be like, hey,
Like,
bud,
hey, come over here.
hey.
You mine now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's
And so I'm like,
hilarious.
I know you got love for me. I'm like, come on.
That's hilarious. That's
Let's
funny.
see what happens.
I feel it. I feel it.
I thought that was very
For
smart.
sure. For sure. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I'm just feeling things out, to be honest. I'm just chilling. That sounds like I'm just fucking around, but I'm just chilling. I'm like, if it's there, it's there. If it's not, I'm not like losing sleep over it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I totally
in
hear
that-
you. And that fear that you were talking about, like waking up to the wrong person, I was engaged in my early 20s.
I never knew that.
No?
I actually never knew that.
I don't know if I did tell
Oh
you that or
wow,
not.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know. It was just in a different time. I was 20 years old.
Wow.
Actually, and this person was much older than me, and I got into it for the wrong reasons.
What were the reasons, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm putting you on the spot now.
It's very shallow.
It's fine.
The reason was, oh my God, I apologize, Mike. You're a great man. Yeah. The reason why I said yes, well, I honestly only said yes because I had a lot of pressure. But I should have said no, but I said yes because I felt pressure
Yeah.
from him because we'd been together 3 years, you know.
Okay.
And
Next
then
step.
he's older. He was ready to start a family.
Yeah.
And then, but the shallow reason was, the first friend
For sure.
to get married. And here I am, like the last now. And I'm fine.
Hey, I feel it.
I'm definitely fine with that.
For sure.
But it went far. Like, I not only said yes, I said yes for the wrong reasons. I did love the guy. I don't think I was in love with him. I don't think I knew what it was yet. I was still figuring out who
Yeah.
I was.
That's
and
true.
that's why I ultimately told him. I was like, we're not on the same wavelength
Yeah.
anymore. I'm just experiencing life. I'm
Yeah.
21 in the club, and
For sure. You're
I'm
seeing
trying
new
to-
guys every weekend.
yeah,
Like,
and I wanted to dance,
Yeah.
go out, and then
For
he didn't
sure.
want to because he was older. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But thank God that I had amazing parents that saw, when it got, oh God, I waited till honestly, I wasn't a runaway bride or anything.
Yeah.
But it was 3 months and like
Oh, wow.
till the wedding. So everything was paid for.
Oh.
Everything.
Ooh, okay.
It was honestly the hardest thing I ever had to
Yeah.
do, not only to break his heart, but everyone's hearts that were
Yeah,
involved, and
for
then
sure.
the money that would be lost
Yeah.
due to my, I don't know. I was, naive. I don't know.
I don't know if naive. It's just you figuring out who you were, and sometimes you just outgrow things.
Or ignorant. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just didn't know. I wasn't self-aware. I wasn't, at the time, I
Yeah.
wasn't self-aware of who I was, what I wanted, why I was saying yes.
For sure.
Why I should have said no.
Yeah.
You know? So thankfully they told me my parents met after they divorced someone else. So they
Okay.
they were both previously married before
Yeah.
meeting each other, but they both were like, we don't want you to ever go through that. They're
Yeah,
like,
it's a
money is
mess.
nothing. Yeah, they're like, don't worry about the money. We care
Yeah.
about you. We care about your heart and your head. And if this is what you want, like,
That's
say the
beautiful.
word.
That's beautiful.
And I
That's
just
awesome.
cried. I was
Aw.
just like, I felt so much relief. Like
Yeah.
a brick was off my chest and my head, and it was intense.
Yeah. I mean, that means you made the right decision. So
Oh yeah.
that's awesome. Did you like tell your parents about it, or did they like observe and see?
My mom said she could notice that I wasn't like
Fully in.
happy, like
Yeah.
kind of just going through the motions. Like girls would be excited, like most girls would be
Yeah,
excited
most definitely.
about picking out a dress and going to the venue and selecting food, and I just seemed agitated.
Yeah. It's a good sign right there.
Yeah, the ring was beautiful though.
Yeah. You got to keep it. Nah,
I
he
gave
was like,
it back.
nah.
No,
good.
I gave it back. I have a soul.
I feel.
Gave it back.
I never knew that, but I learn something new every day.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
it's cool.
yes. Whew, yeah, we are going to change the subject on that one.
For sure.
So, what do you do for work? Like, how do you pay the bills? And why do people, when you're meeting someone, that's like the first thing people ask? Like, is that like the way to
What do you do?
size you up as your social, like your human currency?
Yes.
I'm curious.
I think you put it perfectly. I think you put it better than I could put it. I think it's like a society, like when you live in a capitalistic society, right?
Yeah.
What you do holds weight in terms of people's perception of you, right? Regardless of who you are, we live in a society that cares about like how much money you have, regardless of if you're a shitty person, right? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter to a lot of people, but I think that's why it is. I think because like a lot of the way society gauges their worth is through materialism. So typically when people meet you, it's a mixture of them trying to size you up, like, oh, let me see where he fits in the economic ladder.
Right.
But also, it's also like, I think another part of it is just kind of seeing like how you ended up there, right? Because like if you're doing something, it's not like you love it, but like there has to be a reason for you to end up there. So sometimes it's just part of your story and they want to know more about you.
Right.
Yeah. So personally, I work in finance. So I work for Alliance Bernstein. I'm in corporate action, so it's an investment firm. So pretty much we just, whenever, like a company that we manage their money, whenever like a corporate action happens, I don't want to go into the whole spiel about it. It's a whole, I hear about it too much at work. But pretty much whenever money moves, it comes to our department. I communicate with the custodians, the banks, and portfolio managers, and we decide, oh, are we going to take this option? If we do, I send it to the banks, make sure everything looks correct.
Yeah.
And pretty much that's what I do. But
And do you like it?
I do. I definitely do. So I started about 4 months ago. After college, I played soccer. I was pursuing soccer for a while. I played in Costa Rica for a little bit. Had an opportunity to stay in Costa Rica to play, but I had some agents. I had like the sports world is also another different, just like a
See,
different.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a very grimy space, right? So like, I had an agent that was pretty much trying to fuck me over type shit. So I was like, I got to get out of that space. Got back. I was still playing semi-pro here in Nashville. Then I got the opportunity to be on the practice squad with the professional team. Did that for about a year. Tore my groin like around the end of their season.
Damn.
And I was working with another agent. I had a couple opportunities to go like try out for teams. My groin kind of just screwed that or whatever.
Damn.
Yeah,
That
so-
happened to my dad when he was
Yeah.
playing college ball.
That
so
shit
I know,
hurts.
man.
It's
His story is
Painful.
crazy, though.
Yeah.
Were you in a wheelchair?
No, I was not in a wheelchair. For like a week, I couldn't, like, even when you sit on the toilet, it hurts
Oh my
a lot.
gosh.
It's so painful. It felt like somebody sniped me. Like,
I don't get how that happens.
it was like, well, to be fair, so like, we had trained like a lot that week and I had worked out and all that. And that day I trained and my legs were feeling so sore. So we did like, they broke us up into four groups. 2 groups were playing 6v6.
Yeah.
Then the other 2 groups were doing like finishing. So like somebody would cross, you header, you finish. And like my legs felt like okay, but I was like, all right, my legs are kind of tired.
Mm-hmm.
So we get switched around. We get to like play. Somebody played me a through ball. I like opened up my hip to go chase it, and my hip just popped. Like my groin just popped, and I was like, oh.
Balls popped.
And I just knew, I was just down on the ground, and I knew I'd done something bad. So that was like, it took me like 4 or 5 months to actually like be 100% again. So like in that period, I missed like I was trying to find a contract in the USL. I had missed like the whole 5-month recruiting period because like teams were not going to sign you unless they saw me play in person. You know what I mean? So like word of mouth goes a long way. The Nashville SC coach tried to help me with like get places. I tried to get him to talk to some teams for me, but like they still wanted to see me play and I couldn't go play. So it was one of those things. Then COVID happened and I was just like, man, I've been chasing this for like a couple of years. It was like a year and a half. And I was like, man, I don't know. Like it's been my biggest passion since I was born. Like soccer in Nigeria is like religion. Like, so you grow up doing that. And it just felt like, I don't know, I prayed a lot about it. I talked to a lot of people about it. It just felt like it was good timing to like, okay, and it's also hard to build a foundation when you're, like in soccer, I could be here today and my agent calls me and be like, yo, this team in Arizona wants to watch you play. And if they sign me, I have to move to Arizona and they can loan me to San Francisco or whatever. So
Free agent.
Exactly.
Is that what that means?
No, well, it's free agent, yes. Free agent in terms of like the first when they sign you. But when you're on a team can like sell you to another team or loan you out to another team, right?
Right.
But you're right. That's the term.
I was like, oh God.
When you're not signed, you're a free agent, right? So it was like one of those things where I was just like, all right, man, like it's kind of hard to build a foundation like that. It's just like, I don't know. I just felt it in my soul like it was time. And I still miss the game, don't get me wrong. But I'm content with the decision I made. So pretty much I stopped playing. I worked at a sales company for a little bit. I liked sales, but I just didn't like cold calling people. Like, it's just, it got exhausting. So then I ended up in finance and I've been here since. So.
There you go.
And I like it so far.
I love that. And I didn't know you played soccer like that. Like, I didn't know you balled like that.
I was all right.
That's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I played soccer.
Did you?
I was on an undefeated team in high school.
Ooh.
But
so you played in high school as well?
I did. Nice. I did. I was defense, and we were undefeated. And then I had the nerve to go to a Nashville game recently. Yeah. And I was like, what did I say? Like foul? I yelled something that did not make any sense at a soccer game. Yeah. And I literally like got the most stares.
Oh, for
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. It's been a long time. And then my friend's like, didn't you play soccer? I was like, but I didn't know the rules. I was constantly getting kicked out of the game all the time.
That's like the most American thing I've ever heard.
Yes, I was always getting was it a technical?
Just fouls.
Okay.
Like you're talking about like yellow cards?
I yelled technical foul at the game.
Oh,
that's basketball, right?
Yes, that's basketball.
I yelled that, and everyone turned around in front of me and looked at me like I was just
like, who is she?
Don't worry about
Somebody come get your girl, man.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Because I was used to being the bad one on the field.
Yeah, defenders, that's what you're supposed to do. Defenders, you're supposed to tackle people and
they didn't get by
make
me.
it ugly. Yeah, that's your job. Literally.
And I wasn't meaning to be aggressive. It's just every time they came, they would fall, and I would be like, I didn't push her. They'd just come, and I guess I was stronger, so they fell at force.
Yeah,
just from brutal force of my body. Just like you fall to the ground. I'm looking down like. And they're like, Allison, the ball.
Derrick Henry and them and shit.
And then my team scores. I'm like, high five.
I feel it. That's cool. That's impressive that you played in high school. I thought you were about to give me like, I played when I was like 5 years old type shit.
No, I did that too. Yeah, very well-rounded.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope. But yeah, I played soccer. It was fun. Like, obviously, I'm from Nigeria originally. So that's, like I said, that's religion.
And that's why I was asking about your job. You mentioned some people ask for, for social status, but then you said some people ask for trying to get to know you.
For sure.
Like
for
where
sure.
you came from. So I was just like, because I know there is a lot of pressure coming from a Nigerian home
Most
on what
definitely.
you do for a career.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely because like most Nigerians, it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? So, good thing in the sense of like Nigerians, I think somebody could fact check me. Last time I checked, it was correct. Nigerians are like the most educated. What's the word? Educated immigrant group. I think educated group in general in America, right? And in terms of like degrees and education and college and all that. So that's good in that sense because your parents like education is huge in our culture because in Nigeria there's a bunch of corruption. Like
Yeah.
economically, Nigeria is like the most like it's the strongest in Nigeria, Egypt, and South Africa are typically the strongest African countries in that sense, but the corruption just like there's so many opportunities are lost because of greed and things of that nature from politicians. So education is like the safest route to go because like it's just like it just makes sense. You know what I'm trying to say? So you grew up in that space and your parents push education, education, education. And it's not coming from a place of like it comes from a place of like also them wanting to like compare with other parents, right?
Yeah,
You know what I
like,
mean? They want
so-and-so is
exactly.
Did
He's
you
a
hear?
Victor is a doctor and shit like that. That's how my parents be sounding. So they because of that. So like they're being the little weddings. My son is a lawyer and all that type of stuff. So so you go like it's a mixture of that because like they want to hold you up as a trophy, right? And they in a sense they disregard your actual passion.
Yeah.
They look at it from a strictly like, how do I monetize this? And what's the quickest route for my son to get to financial freedom?
Yeah.
Because they look at like financial freedom as the way of getting out of like most things or like struggle and all that stuff. And from the way they grew up, it makes sense for them, right? But it does a disservice to the youth because there's so many kids that have ambition and they have passions and it gets drowned out because their parents tell them like, no, you're not doing that or that's not going to make you any money. And I feel like there's so many creatives that are like that have had to give up their dreams to be doctors. And don't get me wrong, they're like I know people that are making a lot of money being lawyers and doctors,
Right.
but they're so unhappy.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's cool. Like they look cool on Instagram.
And it's one of the most depressed
Places to be. Like your whole life is like. And good thing about it is I'm like a very stubborn person.
Yeah.
So my parents have always done that. So like even when my parents would throw that at me, I'm like, no, like I'm gonna do what I want to do. You know what I mean? Because 15 years from now or 20 years from now, if I'm unhappy, I can't go back and like erase that. You know what I'm trying to say? And like, don't get me wrong, like the odds of like older people dying before you, it's a lot higher. So like once you've gone from this planet, I'm still gonna have to live with those decisions, right?
Right.
So
That's a
there's
good
that
point.
pressure. Yeah, there's that pressure. There's a lot of pressure there where they're like, a lot of kids don't really find themselves because like their parents are indoctrinated to think like there's no other way out of, so you got to be an engineer or you got to be a doctor or you have to be a lawyer. Those are like the three options as Nigerian kids.
Right.
But my parents also supported me like my soccer career because they always knew that was my biggest passion. As a child, my mom said I never played with any like toys. I just wanted to kick a soccer ball. So they have always known that was in me. So they like supported me as much as possible with that.
Love that.
But from like an academic place, they always try to push me in that route. And I was like, that's not. I'm not gonna be like. If there was one that I would have maybe still consider, it's like law because I think I just like the concept of law. Doctor, nah, I don't like seeing blood.
I can see the law in you.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. But
Very literate, very well spoken.
I can see it. I don't know. I like to debate as well.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
For sure. So I don't know. We'll see. My parents would be happy if I made that decision down the road. They'd be really happy. But
and you are really young, but you're happy right now.
For sure.
So you know
Exactly.
you're
I'm
doing
in a
your
good
thing.
space. Yeah,
so that's really good.
For sure. For sure.
Earlier we mentioned what were we talking about? We were talking about you mentioned when it was something regarding relationships. But
Pressure?
I'm gonna turn around full circle.
Pressure? Oh.
Pressure. No, actually, no, that does help me. That word was triggering. That was
okay.
perfect. Okay, so pressure in dating.
Yeah.
But also, full circle to dating again. Is there a pressure to date a certain race in your family? Has your family ever had an opinion on the
Yeah.
race that you dated?
They've definitely had an opinion in terms of like when I was younger, my mom would, and I don't want to paint a bad picture of my parents, right?
Yeah.
Because the thinking flows from a space of like preserving culture.
Yeah.
So my parents will typically want me to marry a Nigerian because they want to preserve culture and they feel like it's like a easier fit. Also, it's because of like they just want to control that as well too. They want
Yeah.
to control like Nigerian parents like to control for the most part, right? So they like mentioned that like my dad. It's a funny story. My dad would like send these like random ass girls in Nigeria to like DM me on like
Stop it.
I don't know if y'all are familiar with like WhatsApp, and I'm like, fam, like, stop. I literally told him,
What?
stop telling these girls to message me. Like, it's just so weird. Because, like, the whole, like, even if the person was cool, like, the whole dynamic is weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just odd. So I'm like, dude, don't tell him to do that, right? And he'll keep, like, making these jokes, like, whenever you're ready, I'm like, no, I'm cool. Like, I'm straight. But my mom at first wanted the same thing. She was like, you should probably marry a Nigerian, and I'm like, all these things. And I'm like, no, like, for me, like, personally, I don't look, like, I've dated, like, in terms of, like, I've dated just different things, like, women, not things, my fault.
Yeah, not things.
Women, like, in high school, I talked to an Asian girl, a mixed girl.
Yeah.
In college, a white girl, like, just everything, you know what I mean? So, like, I'm not opposed to anything. So, like, for me, I've always looked at love from a perspective and lens of, like, love is one of the greatest commitments, if not the greatest commitments we will have in life in general, right? So you're doing yourself a disservice if you're looking at it from like a closed-off lens, because that shortens your sample size, but also it shortens your reach. Because with a shorter sample size, and I'm looking at it from like a scientific, mathematical perspective in this sense, like your chances of finding the person that actually fits with you lessens, right? So the odds of me finding a Nigerian in Nashville, just in general, are extremely low.
Yeah.
Or like in America in general, there's a lot of Nigerians in America, but like it's a lot, like it's less, right?
Yes.
But the chances of me finding somebody that flows with everything I'm looking for in general in Nashville or wherever, it's a lot more. And I would be a fool to be like, oh, this person fits every single thing I'm looking for, and be like, well, she's not Nigerian though, so I can't marry her. That would just that wouldn't make any sense to me, like, right? So, but my parents, like, they're on the train. They're like, yo, whoever you want to marry, we're okay as long as you're happy, and as long as we think it's a good person, like, we're okay. And I've sat them down and talked to them about this. I'm like, look, like, I'm gonna make a decision and I love your blessing or whatever. I'm gonna make a decision that's best for me, because I'm gonna, like, the same thing. I'm gonna be the one that lives with the consequences of this,
right,
for my life. So, I think it's important to like take your parents' advice, and they mean well. They're coming from a loving place. They want the best for you, but also like you're at a point as an adult, you're gonna have to make decisions for yourself. So.
That's very true.
So yeah, there is pressure though. There is pressure there.
Yeah,
for
there's
sure.
pressure, and I feel like for females, at least for me, I feel like there's a pressure to be with someone in general. Like if you say you're single, there's already like a notion of he's out there, he's out there. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm fine. Like, what's wrong with
I
you?
agree.
Because it's okay for a guy to be single, but as soon as you're like, I'm single, no, I'm not dating. Yes, I'm okay.
Yeah, it is.
I'm gonna I can breathe. It's gonna be all
fine.
right.
I'm cool, bro. I think it flows off like this patriarchal thinking where like society revolves around men, right?
Yep.
And a lot of people look at it from that. It's very unhealthy. A lot of people look at it from that lens where they think women are just here to please men. You know what I mean? So like whenever you haven't found one, they're like, oh, like he's there, and like they feel like if you can't find a man then you're unworthy, and that's it's just such a stupid way to think.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like there's just way more to life than that. You know what I mean?
It really is.
For sure. Because like there's so many women that are like unhappy marriages of men that are beating them and just violating them and things of that nature, and it's like, for that title, is that worth it? You know what I mean?
Nope.
Not at all. Like,
Nope.
if my cousin, I have a bunch of female cousins and aunts, like, and I've had aunts that have gone through marriages like that. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen it firsthand as a child, And that really infuriates me, right? So like
Yeah.
now she's single, my aunt's single.
Yeah.
She's like 46 or whatever, 47, and she's in way more happier than she
See?
was when she was like in that abusive ass relationship. So
I'm so glad to hear that
For
that
sure.
she got out.
oh, she did. So
I can definitely relate to that because my last one was emotionally abusive.
for sure.
So I feel like that's why I'm like, oh, I'm in my healing stage,
Yeah.
Like I'm so much happier outside of that relationship and not having some title just because.
Yeah. I feel it.
Yeah, it's not fun. And then you realize how much peace you do have alone. You don't have someone's son lying and
Yeah.
cheating and manipulating.
legit,
I'm
for
like,
reals.
it's very peaceful.
And I
like this.
I agree. And it's just like you said, right? Like peace is like the barometer of like if you're moving in the right direction from my perspective, right? Like if I'm with a girl and she's like bringing me drama and like just a headache,
Yeah.
I automatically know like that's just not for me.
Right.
But if like I think even from like your nervous system, right? Like if you're with somebody and they bring peace and they bring just calm to your life and stillness, it does something to your spirit, right?
Yeah.
And it gives you clarity. And also I think the more healed you become and the more the more evolved you become as a person, the more cognizant you are of who fits into your space, right?
Right.
So, like you said, peace. Like in the past, I think when you're younger and when you're unhealthy, you chase that roller coaster feeling because it feels good and it's fun, and it's a human reaction to chase things that we can't fully grasp, and
Right.
you're constantly chasing this person's like playing games or like they're bringing drama into your life, and that feels good because it goes back to your childhood and the trauma you experienced. Because a lot of times we come from households where neglect and like not abuse is not the right word, neglect and like just shame is the way you quantify love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes, or like just the way we experience it as a child. And as a person, you naturally replicate things that you're familiar with, even though if it brings pain or hurt or whatever. The human body works on repetition. So we come up from neighborhoods or like places like that, and they tell us this is how somebody shows you love, or you see it in movies or cartoons where being mean to a woman and like making up, it's like, oh my God, that's love.
Yeah, the fantasy,
Those
like
fantasies.
the breakup and then the come together, the dramatics.
For sure.
Like it doesn't need to be like that.
Like,
if it's
nah,
your
bro.
person, I don't think there's like this
Yeah,
like
man.
dramatic end in the rain
For
and
sure.
it's pouring and everyone's
I
crying.
agree.
And
Legit, like that you get back together the next day, and like, don't get me wrong, I've definitely been that in my life. You know what I'm trying to say?
I have too.
Exactly, and I've noticed it from therapy. When she started breaking it down to me, and also just having healthy friends or like healthy relationships, understanding their connections with their woman or vice versa with their man, it just makes you have a different view on that. And like the healthier you become, once I even like sense it, I'm like, fam, I am out. I'm not even dealing with this.
No,
like, you know what I mean?
notice the red flags. I'm not
sure.
ignoring snooze on the red
Yeah,
flags.
man, I'm
no
not
more.
doing all that, man.
Oh
Like-
my gosh! And then I've come to find that I'm very sensitive. I'm empathic. So
I can see that.
yeah, so I feel things a lot more than most do. And I found that when I was in that relationship that was unhealthy, I had anxiety all the time and I didn't know why. I had butterflies in my stomach. I've read that is actually not a good thing, that your body's saying this isn't good. This
sure.
isn't for you. It's the initial being excited about dating someone new, but if you have butterflies, you're 6 months in.
Yeah,
that's your body warning you that this isn't a good energy.
For sure.
That
for sure.
our bodies can feel the energy when someone. Well, I can feel the energy if I'm being deceived, but I didn't know how to read it then. I just thought I was in a dark space.
For sure.
Because something's wrong with me. Oh, I'm sad again. I have anxiety. No, I was just around the wrong person.
I agree.
Yeah.
And like society glorifies toxic relationships, right? Like, and I just want, like, I'm not saying I'm like in this space where like I figured it all out from like a dating sense. I still have my toxic traits. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, just to put it out there, I still have my toxic traits and I'm working through them, but I'm cognizant of them. I think that's the start of like getting past them, right? But society has this view of like glamorizing and glorifying toxic connections. Like everything like you just said, it's like you see it with people who put on pedestals like celebrities that have very dysfunctional relationships, right? And we think that shit is beautiful. And like I have people in my life that have broken up like 20 times, fam. I'm like, bruh, after the second time, you gotta know this is not your person. Like, there's just
That's
nothing
too
is gonna
much.
change. You know what I mean? But those stories, like, people just gravitate towards it because, like you said, I think majority of society is in that space where they don't understand things like that in terms of like psychology and physiology and how your body should feel in healthy spaces and doing your work from like a trauma perspective and things of that nature. So like the more you do that, the more amplified your mind becomes when you're around those things.
Right.
It's like a sensor goes off in your head. You're like, all right, that shit
Yeah.
just feels off. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. And you mentioned you're working on yourself and
Most definitely.
and you're aware of your toxic traits.
Most definitely.
I'm definitely aware. And I will say it. I'm just
Yeah.
like I'm an anxious attachment. So
Okay.
I may come off clingy when it comes to dating at first.
Yeah.
Only because from my past of the chase, like always
For sure.
having to chase my partners.
Yeah.
So if I feel like I text too much or
Yeah.
like not back to back, but these paragraphs. That is my toxic trait.
That's not toxic, though.
I think-
Texting paragraphs is not toxic at all.
I think because I've gotten them before, and I'm like, this is too much. I
Oh,
can't handle
okay.
this.
I feel it, I
put
feel it.
myself in someone else's shoes,
Yeah.
and I didn't do it all the time. But it was just like, man, I shouldn't have to explain myself first
Yeah.
of all that much. If he doesn't understand me,
Yeah.
that's a red flag again.
For sure.
He doesn't understand me. I have to make paragraphs. So
What if you just like I think you have like, I'm just asking the question, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you're naturally a very intelligent person and you're very expansive with the way your mind works. What if that's just a way of you expressing yourself to the person?
Well, in this circumstance, it was me trying to express myself. But I find that I'll get in my head a lot and just think, oh, this isn't going to work out. He doesn't really like me.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's where my anxious attachment comes from. I'm just like, because I'm just, I don't know.
Overthinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel it.
What's that word when what's the word when someone's just like, no, whatever, not negative, but just like
Pessimistic?
pessimistic.
Yeah.
I've become pessimistic
pessimist?
when it comes to dating now. Like it's just where I am
I think
right
that's
now.
a societal thing.
Yeah, until you guys shape up. I don't know, mister.
I think women, like, it's guys are the same way because I have like circles of guys that are single, right? And the commonality is like everybody's just in this space where like, because like the nature of love, it's a very, very, very cathartic thing because you're pouring your soul, you're pouring your heart to this person. And you're not sure if they're going to receive it correctly.
Yeah.
You're not sure if they're going to actually accept it. You're not sure if they're going to think you're weird. There's so many like variables there,
Yeah.
right? So the nature of love is like you're spilling your guts out to this person and there's no guarantee.
Yep.
And humans like guarantee. Like if I'm going to put my soul into something, I want like, all right, this is going to work. But love doesn't work like that. And when you constantly do that and you see people have burned you and burned you and burned you, and you lose hope on finding the right person. So your natural defense mechanism is like, let me build this shell.
Yeah.
And I think all of us, this is like a blanketed statement. I think all of us as humans want love, regardless of what anybody says. I think all of us deep down inside want love, right?
Yeah.
So I think we just put on this shell, and like, I think it's in a sense it's protective and it's smart, but also you have to, like, you're never ever gonna fully experience the love that you need and you desire if you don't actually be vulnerable. It's like talking about your mental health. It's the same thing. Like, you don't necessarily build that connection without actually like, yo, I'm gonna jump off this bridge and I don't know if nobody's gonna catch me, but like shit, like the it's worth jumping. And I think that's what it is, right? I think you meet people that make it worth jumping off that bridge. And even though you fall
taking
in,
the risk.
exactly, and even though it doesn't work, it is what it is. Life goes on, and it might take you a month, it might take you years to get over it. But I think as society we all get into this spot where like there's just a lot of ambivalence with love. There's a lot of like just nihilism that flows with love,
Yeah.
and it's also deals with like the way we engage in like attraction and engage with dating is weird. Like
Yeah.
so weird.
I just don't understand it. Not these days.
Yeah.
I feel like I have an old soul, but I'm like a kid inside.
For
it's really
sure.
weird. Very childlike, but an old lady.
Yeah.
I'm just like these. I don't know.
Yeah.
The stipulations for dating, I just feel like it's all like a trophy situation because.
You think so?
Yeah.
Trophy in what sense?
Well, just your image, like who you have on your arm.
Ooh.
Like another thing, that's another currency.
Ooh,
Like,
that's deep.
Yes, like
That
it's
is
just
deep.
not the job, it's who you're with. But in
Yeah.
a way, like you are showing who you are to the world with your partner. You're
Yeah, it's a
basically
reflection
saying,
of you.
yeah, it's a reflection of you. But what I've been seeing
Yeah.
recently, and I know you said you've dated outside your race before. I
For sure.
definitely have. I've dated. Yeah, all of them. I've dated the whole rainbow.
All of them.
Yeah. That sounds like I'm
You
for
said
the streets.
all of them.
Yeah, I'm not for the streets. I visited sometimes, time to time,
Hit
but
a
not
couple
for
blocks,
it.
but I'm not for the streets.
Yeah, not for.
I feel it, I
But the
feel it.
streets like me. No, just yeah, white, black, Asian, all the things. And but growing up in Portland, Oregon, I've mentioned in previous podcasts that I've been predominantly around white people. So my most experience is dating white men. And when I got my first experience dating a black man, it was really exciting. And that sounds so funny. Doesn't that sound? It was really exciting. It was fun because we have all these things in common.
Most definitely.
He knew about my hair already.
Yeah.
Asked about it. Are you
sure.
going to be okay if the rain? Do you need a change of? You need.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay. I don't
Ooh,
have
look
to
at
have-
this king
I
right
was
here.
just like, okay, he cares about it. Okay, I like this.
Look at this black king right here.
Yes, and then I finally get me one,
Mm-hmm.
and then he acted a damn fool, and I'm just like, and now my mom's like, "Are you gonna say you're not dating black men now?" I'm like, "No, Mom, I'm not." Like
Not
I
generalizing?
wouldn't. Yeah, I would never put a race in a box just because one did me wrong. Because all the white ones did. You know what I mean? They didn't all do something wrong. You know
I
what
think
I
it's
mean?
just a human thing. Yeah.
It's literally a human thing.
sure.
You're right.
Yeah.
But now I feel like I don't even have a chance because there's a trend going on. I don't even know if you've noticed it, but black men they have a preference for white women. And
Interesting question.
yeah, I don't know if you've noticed it.
I've definitely noticed it because I've gotten this a lot. I've definitely gotten this a lot. I've gotten this a lot from like friends and jokes and things of that nature, and black women in general have told me that.
Yeah.
In terms of like I remember this chick, right? She was Nigerian actually, which is rare to meet a Nigerian in Nashville. Well, it's not rare. There's a big Nigerian population. It's rare to meet a Nigerian girl around my age that I'm attracted to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like we were like, she hit me up, we were DMing and stuff, like just snapping. And I wasn't like, I just didn't think this was gonna go anywhere like that. So I hit her back up like probably like 3 months later, like just not like that. I was not just on some like. Like we never did
Oh, I
nothing.
got you.
We never like even hung out in person, right? It
Yeah.
was just like on some like Snapchat stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just fizzled out, and I was like, all right, whatever. So I hit her up on some Snapchat, and she was like, I'm not talking to you. I was like, why? She was like, you only like white girls. I was like, wait, what? Like, I was like, first of all, I literally said, first of all, you've never met me in person.
Yeah.
Secondly, like, you don't even know, like, really even know the circles I hang out with, right?
Yeah.
You don't know who I dated, whatever, right? And whatever. She got mad. That was that, whatever. But also, just because, like, I think naturally, just like in the space of Nashville, like, I have very different, like, just mix of friend groups. I have,
Yeah.
like, just the way I grew up, I went to Overton High School. Overton High School has like 30 different countries. So I grew up, I have like homies that are Middle Eastern. A lot of my best friends are like Kurdish. I have a lot of homies from soccer that are
Wow.
Hispanic. I have a bunch of homies that are Hispanic. I have a lot of homies that are black. Just like going to my high school, I had a black population as well. just in general. Then I
Yeah.
went to Trevecca. Trevecca is a predominantly white school. I have a lot of country homies, so that's
Yeah.
completely different dynamic, right? So I hung around in all these spaces, and I'll go out and like I'll see I'll take pictures with like white girls and shit like that, and like so many black girls generally get offended by that. Like they would like send me a message like, "Yo, do you only hang out with white girls and shit like that?" Or just things like that, or like if I'm hanging out with black girls, they wouldn't say anything about that. But like it's just, I think there is a thinking that goes behind why seems like some black men prefer white women. I think it's because of the way society has labeled black women
Right.
from like a white lens, right? From like a racial white lens, and it's intentional. Like in terms of like if you look at like the pictures and depictions of white women historically have been this like big or like this like stubborn, I don't want to hear shit from you, just loud. Like that imagery is very detrimental to black women's progression in society. And that's very intentional, right? And as a black man, you should understand it because also those people have also put imagery that's affecting you as a man.
Yeah.
So you should understand it, right? So that's been a reason because like a lot of black men are like, oh, I don't want to deal with all that. I'll just get a white girl that will do whatever I say, and these are generalized statements I'm making, by the way.
Yeah.
I'll just get like a white girl because like it's just a lot easier in that sense of like dealing with it. And they think a lot of black women are too much work and all that, right? And also from like a historical.
I literally just went, like, personally had that scenario happen recently.
I'm telling you.
From the mouth.
I'm literally telling you. And it's so wild how like propaganda has affected the black community in so many ways from generations and generations and generations. So it's very weird when people in our communities fall for the same propaganda when we should be refuting it and fighting that battle with black women, right? So that's one of it. Also, I think from like a epigenetics perspective, in terms of like transgenerational trauma, and from slavery in terms of like how black people were slaves. Obviously, that's not new news, right? Black people were slaves. Like it did happen. The concept of like white men raping our women in front of black men, and black men couldn't protect them. They couldn't do anything. There is a little bit of disconnect there because of that history in terms of like the black woman is looking at the black man as like, you can't protect me in this space, right? And the black man is looking at her as like, even though it's not either of them's fault, it's like, oh, you just got defiled or you just got violated or whatever, right? So there is that like weird connection there. And also to flow off the white thing as well, right, is white slave owners also used to look at like the lighter colored slaves as like more attractive or things of that nature. So that flows into colorism as well. So a lot of people in society, we live in a very Eurocentric standard society. So they look at it's a spectrum of beauty, right? So they think like the lighter you are, the more attractive you are, the more beautiful you are. And that comes from like representation that we see on TV, representation we see around us. So I think a lot of black men are conditioned in those spaces. And a lot of times it's like a subconscious thing, right? They don't necessarily know it's happening to them. So they grow up and they look at the white woman as like a trophy. Like I beat the system type shit, right? Like I beat the system. I got a white woman and everything that goes with that. And they look at like that's what even like in the black community, you hear like weird colorism things like dark skinned women are not appealing. I want like a red bone or like a mixed girl. And like, I'm like, bruh, do you understand? Like you're playing into the hands of like this weird, like racist thinking. So for me, I think that's where it all comes from. I think that's really where it all comes from. So I think it's a lot of hurt on both sides and a lot of hurt. That's really what it is. I think
it is. And I was mentioning something happened recently. It was just a couple weeks ago. It's not technically a friend, like a party friend. Out and about on Broadway.
I feel it. We all got friends like that. You don't really chop it up all week. It's just like, all right, fuck it. Every Friday, Saturday, you just grab drinks and shit.
It was a group outing, and he's a black gentleman, and he was with a white woman, and something in the night happened where they they didn't like where we were going on Broadway. Like something happened. And then I was just like, oh shit, well, where do we want to go? And then I said something like that, and then he was just like, and then he said to my date, who is half Spanish, he's half Spanish, half Italian.
Oh, the rainbow talk was for real.
Yeah, that's a buddy. That's a friend, though. And he was just like, see, that's why I date white women. He's like that attitude. He's just like, yeah, he was just like.
That's a lost brother right there.
Yeah, and then he said, he's like, you're going to be feisty. He was talking to my friend. And he was just like, you're going to have to deal with that your whole life. Like, dealing
That's
with
some
me.
Weird shit, man.
Is bad.
That's just weird.
Feisty sassiness is bad.
It's just odd. It's just really odd. Like, and I think also from like a man perspective, like a lot of men just want like fucking teddy bears. Like somebody that could just like control, like, yo, go do the dishes, go do that. And like they want damn near a slave type shit. So that shit is trash. Like, I don't even like how do you even think about that before saying it? Because like if a white man walked up to him and they says like, you're gonna deal with that thug your whole life, and it was the opposite way, like the conversation is drastically different for him. You know what I mean? So like for me, I try not to be a hypocrite, because like you can't be like banging for the same systems that are fucking you, like for lack of a better way of putting it. Like, you know what I'm trying to say?
I like the way you said that.
It's like that shit is weird, man. That shit is weird. And like don't like teach his own. Like if he wants to date white woman and that's his preference, I think attraction is a subjective thing.
Right.
Some people are generally just attracted to certain, like I know black homies are just attracted to Spanish women because of their vibe and their flavor and all that.
Yeah.
And that's your own. But like, don't start making these stereotypical weird statements and perpetuating that
I was just
trope.
like, well, I hope he likes you for who you are as a human. But that statement irked me, and then everyone in the group didn't understand why. And then it made me even more upset.
Oh, for
because
sure.
no one understood why I got upset by what he said.
I agree. I definitely knew.
I was just like,
that shit is trash. Yeah.
And I kept thinking about it. I'm like, why don't they? And then one of my friends was like, I didn't even know black people could be racist against black people. That's what he said. Because once I explained it, he's just like, oh. And I was just like, yeah, that's pretty fucked up what he said. And then I was just thinking like, see, my perspective is that like I don't know, because I didn't ask him after that. We didn't have a discussion after it. But like, where is this coming from? Like, do you not like yourself?
Do you not like your mom?
Yeah, do you not like your mom? Do you not like your grandmother? I'm just like, you just said, you have to put up with this your whole life because she's feisty. Like, that's a bad thing. Like, I'm just like, wait, do you not like yourself? Or is this like a generational thing? Like, I had this idea that black men may gravitate towards white women because black families, there's a lot of broken homes when it comes to black families. Yeah. And so the mother usually has to take on the more masculine role. So I don't know if you had like a mother that was really she had to put on those pants and she was tired. She was working more than she had to. For sure. She was irritated. She was impatient. And maybe you saw a side that she never got to show her feminine side really. Boom. So then you were like, I don't know if that made you feel, but that doesn't mean everybody's like that.
That's actually a very, very good theory. It really is. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like you said, and there is a lot of broken black families, and that's another conversation in terms of like,
I don't even know what time it is.
Yeah, just like
what time is it?
like just in terms of like the history that goes into like the breaking apart of the black family, and things of that nature. So yeah, I mean, definitely that plays a part in it because like you said, like as a woman only child, you do have to embody the masculine, right? Because and even when my dad moved to America when I was born, so my mom pretty much raised me, and I did have father figures, uncles, and everything that was around, but like she still had to embody that because she's the head of the house. You know what I'm trying to say? So yeah, definitely, I could definitely see that for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just a theory, guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's all theories, but...
Yeah. It's just like, man, I'm not going to lie. It was a little petty. I unfollowed him after that.
I don't blame
But
you.
only because
I don't blame
that energy was an energy that I know would not bring value to my life anymore.
I agree.
That was the reason. I was just
Also-
like, there's no even like having a conversation. 'Cause
Exactly.
I hope he broadens his horizon and he gets more open minded about black
Yeah.
women one of these days. I'm just not gonna
Yeah.
teach him about it. It's not my job.
Exactly. I feel
I
it.
tried. I was just like, okay,
I agree.
we're
And that-
going. We're going home now.
I agree though. That shit is it's like you said, that thinking flows into various parts of life. That's like he's like I don't know the brother, but like he's clearly like he needs to do some self-thinking and self-realization in terms of like figuring out like if he actually had that thought, the healthy way for him to approach that was to like pull you aside, like, yo, I've had this thinking about black women. Can you explain to me like where this comes from? That would be
I would have liked to have that.
that's
That
a
would have
very
been nice.
completely different conversation than coming in your face like you're gonna have to deal with that forever. So like his ego is so big that he's so confident in just verbalizing his ignorance.
Yeah.
That goes with everything. That goes with like probably his political views. That probably goes with
yeah,
his
it's a blanket.
societal
Yeah.
views. That goes with the way he deals with a lot of different things. So yeah, I mean, I think definitely, like you said, it's like there's different ways to like approach that, and like none of us know it all. But like for example, like I have a homie. I have like when the whole Palestine and Israel thing was going on, and obviously you're inundated with so much information of like from both sides. Like this person is evil. Like I don't know shit about the situation back
Yeah.
then. Like the logical thing for me to do is like, yo, I'm hearing this and this about Israel. I'm hearing this and this about Palestine. You're from. I have homies that are from there. I'm like, you're from here. Your family's from here. You just put me down. Like, let me know what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Instead of me coming to the person like I'm hearing Israel people are devilish, and I'm hearing
Yeah.
Palestinians are like
Not knowing the whole
violent.
story.
So like, yeah, man, like that shit is just crazy. Like, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves is like when people could like just confidently say bullshit without actually
yeah, I'm like,
like without actually like the thought process, like without actually like figuring out like what like you haven't done your research, you haven't done any like reading about it, you just verbalizing it because from like an anecdotal experience and like
Yeah.
you think your experience colors the whole world
Right.
and colors you extrapolate that to that shit is so stupid, man. And a lot of things that are wrong in society comes from that realm
that
of
way
thinking.
of thinking, yeah.
It flows into politics, it flows into so many things. Like people think their experience is like the whole world's and the whole world's like should shape after them. And that's not how life works, man.
Right.
Yeah, that shit makes me mad. So I had to go on a little rant.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that shit's
I
trash.
wish
That
you
shit's
were
trash.
there.
It's just stupid, man. Like,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Most
though.
def.
So, I just want to thank you for being
sure.
on the
Thank you.
show.
Thank
This
you.
has been very enlightening and entertaining.
It's been a great conversation.
And I know the listeners are going to love it.
Hopefully.
And the listeners need to check out Victor's podcast,
For sure,
The
for sure.
Village Boys.
For sure.
And check out all his knowledge because he's always dropping the knowledge. I could literally listen. Like, I'm just like, wow.
Nah, they should definitely check us out. Not solely because of me, because of like the content we're putting out there. Because I'm like my co-host is extremely smart individual. Like
Yeah.
very very like probably smarter than me. He's a genius type shit. So just like the content we're putting out there, we're not coming from a place of like we know it all. Like we're this erudite wise people. It's like we're figuring out this thing as we go.
Yeah.
And you guys are following us on this journey and you learn things and we do our research and give you information about Black history. And I think we're in a space of society where people need to just learn more about Black history and
Yeah.
Black relations and just the nuance of Blackness and everything that flows with Blackness. Because
Yeah.
from a Black person, you get to learn more about yourself and your history and your lineage. From a white person, you get to understand the Black experience more. And
Yeah.
also helps you engage with Black people better.
Yeah, and be more empathetic.
And
and
empathetic,
and
yeah.
understand them.
And understand them,
exactly.
for
We
sure.
can all understand each other a little bit better.
I agree, definitely.
So I'm such
Yeah.
a huge supporter.
Thank you. I'm a supporter of your podcast. My
thank
co-host is excited to listen to this episode. You're doing great work. I mean, you're literally doing a life-changing thing for most people.
Thank you.
For a lot of people. And I think a lot of times when we do things like these projects and we don't understand the reach that it gets, And like, even if it touches 10 people, like,
Mm-hmm.
and if 10 people listen to this and do not decide to kill themselves tomorrow, that's a
Yeah.
life-changing thing.
That
So,
is. It really is.
for sure. So the more you think about it from that sense, it gives you more purpose. It gives you more drive to keep putting out content, and it just gives you more confidence in your own voice. So,
And that is exactly
sure.
why I'm doing it.
most definitely.
Because
So.
I've been in the depths.
I feel it.
I've been deep in it. I didn't think I was going to get out.
I feel it. But you're
So
here.
if
You're
yeah,
here.
exactly. I'm here. I'm smiling. I'm in the light.
I feel it.
So that's amazing. Thank you for saying that.
Most
I
definitely.
appreciate it.
For sure.
Thank you, Victor, for being on. You guys,
Most definitely.
Village Boys. And we will be video from now on. So I'm really excited.
For sure. I'm excited too. I'm excited to check out the guests you bring on and just the other content you're going to put out this season. So,
Thank you.
for sure. So.
All righty, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to Surgery for the Soul. We will see you next time.
Take it easy.